Today, we're looking at a tragic situation in Matisi, Kenya, where an operation that was supposed to bring peace, well, it did the exact opposite. It left behind a trail of bloodshed and fear. We're going to get into what happened, why it all went so wrong, and what it's meant for the people who actually live there. 3. Just think about that number for a second. In just 3 short days, 3 people lost their lives in Matisi. That single number really sets the stage for the absolute chaos that was about to unfold. And right here, this is the heartbreaking irony at the center of this whole story. The very mission designed to stop the violence and bring back some sense of order, it actually became the source of more death, more suffering, for the very community it was supposed to be protecting. So let's unpack this. How does a mission for peace go so sideways so fast? Well, it all kicked off from one single tragic event. Okay, so you have this special DCI officer. He was sent into Matisi for one reason, to track down and find known criminals. But he was ambushed by a group of young men. He was stabbed in the neck, and he was killed. That moment, that was the spark that lit the fuse on this whole tragedy. But you have to ask, right? Why was a special officer like him even there to begin with? To really get that, you need to understand the climate of fear that had already taken hold in Matisi long before this. It's a really crucial question. This wasn't some random patrol or a routine deployment. This was a direct response to a community that was already living under a constant cloud of terror. You see, Matisi was already dealing with a whole wave of night killings. The crimes were being carried out by what the sources just call unknown criminals. The fear wasn't just some vague worry. It was real. It was something that gripped the entire community, forcing shops to close early and leaving people terrified to even be in their own homes after dark. And listen to this quote from a resident. It just says everything. Imagine being so scared that you can't even go home, that you feel safer staying at your job all night until the sun comes up. That's how bad the fear was before this whole police operation even started. Okay, so with that context, now you get the picture. Let's get back to the operation itself. Because after that officer's death, things just spiraled completely and totally out of control. I mean, just look at the disconnect here. The goal? Simple. Trail the criminals, restore order. But the reality? It was an absolute nightmare. A DCI officer was dead, a civilian was shot and killed by police, and the entire community was thrown into chaos and panic. It was a total failure of what the mission was trying to do. So what happened next? Well, the immediate response from the police was a massive crackdown. They just flooded the area, and in the aftermath, 23 young men were arrested. But, beyond the official reports and the arrest numbers, what did all this chaos actually look and feel like for the people who were caught right in the middle of it? It's the question that always hangs over these kinds of situations, isn't it? When law and lawlessness collide with this much force, who are the people, the everyday people, that get hurt? This right here, this is from a local trader, Bernard Wamangoli. It paints a pretty vivid picture. He said around 8:30 at night, he heard explosions, and then he literally saw 2 bullets tear right through his shop. This wasn't some contained police action. It was a total melee that was spilling into people's homes and their businesses. And right in the middle of that very chaos, another life was lost. A young man, his name was Thomas Nandwa, was shot and killed. But here's the thing. He wasn't killed by the criminals. He was killed by the police. His mother, her words are just heartbreaking. She talked about raising him through so much hardship, how he was known in the community as a hard worker. And her question, it just gets to the very core of this whole tragedy. Why shoot the innocent instead of the thieves? So, after all of that, where does this leave the community of Matisi right now? The answer is pretty simple. They're on edge. They're caught between the fear of the criminals and, frankly, the fear of the response. So let's just recap that timeline real quick. It all started with this growing insecurity. Then it exploded during the operation with the deaths of both the DCI officer and the civilian, Thomas Nandwa. And that brings us to today, where a massive manhunt for the officer's killers is still going on. Now, the official word from the county's criminal investigation officer is that this operation to, quote, restore normalcy is still very much active, and they're promising to deal with any criminals who don't surrender. But for the people actually living in Matisi, normalcy feels a million miles away. Their reality isn't about a police operation. It's about the grief they feel for their neighbors and this constant lingering fear of what could happen next. And that's what we're ultimately left with, isn't it? This really tough, unavoidable question. When the very attempt to solve violence ends up creating more victims and even deeper trauma, what's the path forward? How does a community like Matisse even begin to heal from something like this?